I wanted to share about my creative process so far. So what drew me into art to begin with was always impressionist art, impressionist paintings. They drew me in, and I was just obsessed with staring at these paintings, particularly the series that I think it was Monet and Pissarro, where they would choose one scene, one view, one point, and they would paint that one point at different times of day, so that in the end you would have this series of works of paintings that captured basically the light shifting and the color that would transform on those surfaces, basically the way that you would see. And I always found that so fascinating. Like, that idea alone, it was this idea of capturing light, and I always loved it. I always loved the idea of it. I loved the look of it. I loved the texture. The texture of the paint, and also how messy they were. They were so messy. I found very perfect paintings really uninspiring and really boring. And I always found the messy impressionist brush strokes and texture, the hand of the artist in the works itself, was always really exciting to look at and really exciting to see. I was just enamored with that era. It just drew me right in. It was my first entry into painting. When I actually started to paint, I would paint in that similar impressionist style because I loved it so much, and I was first starting to even just learn paint and learn what it's like to paint, and it was so much fun. I loved it. I loved everything about it, the process of it, how it makes you slow down, how to mix colors and apply them, and to not need to be so careful, and to be able to trust in that intuition for the first time, to be able to trust in the intuitive process of painting was just, I just loved it. It was a place where I could just go and exist in the process without a question about it. Whatever it ended up being, it was good. It did the job for what I wanted it to be. So those were my beginnings. So that was the first spark of love for painting and art and what it can be. I would also always do these sketches. I would sketch my surroundings all the time. I would just be sketching where I was sitting and the shapes of everything around me, and I just loved it as this. I realize now I loved it because it was a grounding tool. I dealt with a lot of anxiety in my life, and it was this place where I could just calm down and look around at what's around me and see the world differently. So it was a 2-in-1. It was this thing where it would calm my nervous system and force me into the present moment, as well as it would train my eyes to see differently. It would train my eyes to see everything with a level of excitement and interest and curiosity, which just made existing through any space more fun and more exciting and less overwhelming or less stressful. And then Find Your Footing appeared, entered into the field of existence. I started working on a series of cityscapes, and gosh, they were fun. They were really fun. I just loved paint. That's what I could describe. I loved painting. I loved color. I loved texture. I chose one motif of a one-point perspective view of a city to capture the idea of speed, of the rush of living within a city, and the overwhelm that exists when everyone's just moving so quickly, and then the blur of living within that. So that's what I was working on depicting in these many different ways. And mainly I just wanted to play with paint. Mainly I just wanted to continue to return back to that grounding mechanism of what painting was for me, and and getting to experiment with different colors and textures and techniques. And gosh, I just really loved it. I loved it. It was so much fun. Just looking at these they're just so pretty. And I also loved the idea of art growing bigger, taking painting and then also entering into a space and allowing a viewer to exist within it and be aware of themselves in relation to it, rather than just staring directly at one painting and getting whatever they will from that. I always wanted it to grow bigger and play. Find Your Footing was just the piece in my mind. It was the one that really did it, but there were also other cool ones that I created. There was Floating in a Daze, which I love. Even though it's so wonky, it's not perfect, it could have been better in so many ways. It got across what I really was wanting to do in the grand scheme, because it was never about just one, in this entire project. It was about how they all came together. Because then you also got Caving In, Caving Out. This one. I just think of how determined I was. I just think of how determined I was at that time to pull that off, to pull off that project, to create that work. Oh my God. I just kept wanting to push boundaries, push what could be created, push the idea of what painting could be. I just kept going with it. And then I developed these these light installations. Oh my goodness, my determination. These were so imperfect too. They were made out of fairy lights, tulle, and literal tracing paper. The tracing paper I cut in, or I would tear it. I tore it. So if you look at the more close-up shots, I tore it in half so that you still get that same effect of all of the paintings, where the outside is darker and the inside is more light. Truly, I did something here. Sheer will and determination, sheer will and a thought and an idea, and this is what came out of it at 20 years old, 19 years old. And then this was what came right after Find Your Footing. The expressive strokes, the expressive creation, the idea of just getting a thought out, just getting energy out. These were just full energy,